Next, I'm going to worry about the intercooler and see if I can mount the intercooler and then figure out about the radiator. The space that's here is just a little bit too small for the intercooler that I have. I knew it was going to be close, so I'm going to end up having to trim some of this back. Another thing is that since the grill is going to be about here and the radiator, original radiator is there, there's really not enough room. So I'm going to end up having to move the radiator back to make room. But of course, I've got plenty of space, so no worries about that. So I'll take this off and do some fitting to get the intercooler in, build some brackets for the intercooler, and then decide about the radiator. One of the things about the radiator is that the stock Jeep radiator has the inlet here and the outlet here, whereas this engine basically has everything on this side. So I may end up using a different radiator, we'll see. Kind of like to reuse the Jeep one, but we'll see if that's possible. Well, I have my intercooler basically mounted. I still have some things to do. I bolted it down through this top mount rail, and then I'm going to put a plate further back here so that the radiator will mount in the same holes but further back, and then I'll also be able to get the bottom bolts in here, I think. Now, the cooler lines, the intercooler lines, right now they butt right up against the headlight bucket. It's not really that big of a problem because I can cut this and bend and point this backwards. So I'm probably going to do something like that. The other thing is that the headlight bucket is really a lot deeper than it actually needs to be. So I can clearance it some, but I prefer not to start with, if I can get away with it. So even though it looks like it's just running right into there, if I either pull this back some and just kind of angle it, I could get a silicone corner on there without any restrictions. This one's not a problem at all, just a 90 on there and it's ready to go. But yeah, this one needs some tinkering. But I'll figure something out here, and then I'll be able to mount the radiator back here. I'm gonna look and see about other radiator designs to see if maybe I want one with the same side, but yeah, that's about the only place that the intercooler can go. I had to take out a lot of this plastic on the sides here. Probably didn't actually need to take out as much as I did here, but I'll just put like a rubber piece in here to keep the airflow going through the intercooler. Hopefully I don't have too much restriction doing that and that it has trouble cooling the coolant, but hopefully by the time it goes through the intercooler and through the radiator, there's still enough airflow to keep the radiator cool as well. Of course, I don't want to put them too close because I don't want the radiator to actually touch the intercooler and cause the intercooler to be less efficient that way, but we'll figure it out. It's got plenty of room back there, so radiator in here, plenty of room before the hits the engine. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's enough work for one day. Well, the intercooler is basically in there. I have a couple of things to do yet. So I put these brackets on the bottom. I drilled through the top, and that's what mounts the intercooler. But because of the spacing between the radiator and the intercooler, I actually had to move the radiator back a good 1.5 inches. So I put these to replace the original plastic mounts, and the radiator mounts are here. I had to, on this side, clearance this intercooler, so of course I still have to weld up this tank again, but it should only impact these bottom two. And because this intercooler is way oversized anyway, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to, of course, reseal that. But as you can see, it's mounted. It's very, very secure. I've got these little bars with screws and these bolts through here. And of course the original radiator top mounts, so those are in original position. Basically, I just had to kick the bottom of the radiator out about 1.5 to 2 inches. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, another thing I have to do here is I have to change the direction that these point just a little bit. So this one is going to need to actually point up just a little bit more. The bottom of this just barely comes up against a part of the frame on the Jeep. So I'm just going to basically cut this little chamber here and pull that down and re-weld it. This one interferes with the headlight bucket a little bit. There's going to be a 90 there, so not a lot, but I'm going to point it towards the back by about 30 degrees. So we just kind of point that direction, and then that'll be done. I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to, of course, prime and paint all these welds and make sure they don't rust, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. The radiator itself is the original radiator, so it probably will be replaced, but I figure I'll fab up with the old one so I can't damage the new one. But I'll probably end up replacing this plastic and aluminum radiator with a solid aluminum. But because it'll have the same mount style, it shouldn't be a problem fitting in there. So anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. Here we have the intercooler mounted from the back side. As you can see, I had to clearance this area here, weld in a new piece to re-seal the intercooler. What I've got to do here now is to angle some of these back a bit. So this one not so much, maybe 15 or 20 degrees, but this one I'm gonna end up cutting and angling back. So I'll put the radiator on just to see how much clearance I have, and then I'll point this out between the radiator and this headlight bucket. As you can see, it's in the way. Now I could potentially just cut this away. The headlight bucket actually doesn't really, the headlight isn't as deep in the bucket, but I'd rather point it to the back so I have less angle change. All right, the intercooler fully bolted up. The angle has been changed here. I cut this and re-welded so that it faces back. I couldn't do much because the edge of the radiator is right here, which means that I am going to have to clearance this just some, but not a lot. With the 90 on here, I'll just take this outside ear off, which really isn't all that critical. I'm going to go ahead and mount the turbo up and then figure out what angles I'm going to use, and then I'll order all the boots and piping, and I'll do a pressure test, but I'm not going to do a pressure test yet until I get it all figured out. But I'll do a pressure test, and if I have to fix any holes I will, but I think I'll be fine. I had to weld that part up. I think I mentioned that already. So I took the piece that used to be connected to the hose and I welded on the inside. Actually ended up having to make two of these because the first one I welded on the outside and it ruined this little flange, so made it again. But anyway, I don't have the little rubber gasket on here right now, but this is going to go right in here and go directly to my top pipe with a 45-degree angle there. Anyway, yep, not bad. Pretty happy with that.